Welcome to Dodgers Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, today we have a very, very, very special guest tonight. Patrick Copen, big dude, big right-handed pitcher in the Dodgers organization, joins Dodgers Daily. Patrick, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Casey. Looking forward to chatting it up a little bit.
Okay, so back in Ohio, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, what's the temperature outside?
25 degrees right now.
25 degrees. So I say that to say, I got to give you a little heck, man. The humidity in Tulsa seemed like, just as soon as you walked to the mound, you were just like sweating all over the place. Can you talk about that part of the season and how that humidity affected you this past season?
Yeah, I played in the South in college, and I don't remember it being like that. But man, it was something that I had to try new things. To try to keep the sweat off of me. I had 5 towels. Sometimes I would run in, when I would throw in day games, I would run into the clubhouse in between innings and dunk my face in the cold tub just to stay cold. Which is something you never hear, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was wearing long sleeve undershirts while I was warming up, and then I would take it off before I went in the game just to all of the sweat would just go on to the long sleeve. But yeah, I had to improvise a little bit.
Congratulations on your promotion to Double A, and you did really well. You made that Double A jump look really easy.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. There's big adjustments that needed to be made. But a lot of it was just having good coaches and good guys behind me to work through all of the adjustments.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's back up. First of all, for those of you who don't know, if you haven't checked out the MiLB Network, the interview that Patrick Copen did, when was that? July or August, something like that? Is that right, Patrick?
Yeah, I think it was July.
Yeah. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out. That's an amazing, amazing interview. So let's back up. It was just a little bit more than a year ago, your last outing in 2024. You got hit in the right eye, and you went to the hospital. Lost all of your eyesight in your right eye. They said there was nothing they could do for you. You weren't sure what was going to happen. You went the whole off season. I'll be darned if you didn't get the ball on day one. Congratulations for all that. Can you back up and take us through that whole process?
Yeah, the hospital process was very hectic, chaotic. Obviously, lots of nerves and unsure about my career moving forward added to that. I went through a procedure that night to sew my eyeball shut because it had split open from the impact. I had also had, some facial fractures. Medically, the Lefort 3 fracture, for any of the listeners that have, some medical knowledge. I then wasn't allowed to do anything for 5 weeks, but yeah, that's the extent of it. Lots of long days at the doctor's office waiting to get looked at.
So did you have a choice? Hey, let's keep fighting this thing, and I might miss a year or two of baseball if I keep trying to get my eyesight back. Did you have that choice versus, okay, well, let's just do what we have to do to get me back as soon as we can? Was there a choice there?
Not really. It was kind of we were kind of wrong place at the wrong time. I had choroidal hemorrhaging in the back of my eye that was detaching my retina. And by the time the hemorrhaging had gone down and all of the blood had clotted, the retina was too detached and folded over itself to really fix. So it was kind of we're waiting for this one thing to go down, and then, we're looking pretty good after this thing goes down. So we're doing everything to get this down, and then it happens, and then they look at it again. They're like, well, it's now really, really messed up, so we can't really do anything about it. But, I got a second opinion, and, the doctors there said the same thing. So I was pretty confident that we took it as far as it went, and we weren't, grasping at straws or anything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Was there any woe is me, hey, man, I gained 15 to 20 pounds. I really burst onto the scene. I've added a couple of pitches. My execution was good. My velo's up. and then this happens. Did you have any of those type of feelings that you had to fight off?
Yeah, there was definitely, a lot of that selfish, self-centered thought, like, why would this happen to me after this is doing that? I'm, working my butt off, trying to do something that's, one of the rarest things in the world, being a Major League Baseball player, all this stuff. But, there's a bigger meaning to all of it, 100%, to where, it speaks to, a case of determination and, how bad do you really want to accomplish what you're setting out to accomplish, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, not that you want to lose either eye, but did it help that it was your back eye instead of your front eye, like out of the stretch?
Yeah, it did. The athletic training staff and the strength coaches and the pitching staff with the Dodgers said that, if it was my other eye, then it would be, a lot more difficult of a case.
So how hard was the depth perception? I mean, you can do the eye test and it seems like one eye centers the other. Was it your front eye that centered your eyesight, or how did that actual physical process work out?
I'm left eye dominant, so it could have been worse.
Yeah.
From what I was told, it was definitely hard at first. I, tried to pour a water bottle into a cup and completely missed. It was like the first few days I wasn't even thinking about it, and I just completely dumped it all over the counter. And when that happened, I realized that I was going to have to do some work to get back to something somewhat normal for me. And I just kind of threw myself into the fire. I had, my fiance throw bundles of socks at me for me to try to catch them with one hand or whatever. And I would, had a ball and I just flick it against the wall and try to catch it like left hand, right hand, two hands and stuff like that. And then this might have not been extremely smart of me, but I went to Arizona very early in January, and Jose Rodriguez was also there.
Yeah.
And I decided that I would play catch with him.
Oh no.
Because he, has really good stuff and really, outlier release metrics and all that stuff. So I figured if I can catch him, I can catch anything. And it was very, very, I didn't get hurt, but it was very difficult. Yeah. But I think it helped in the long run for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So was there any thought like, okay, well, the Dodgers don't need me anymore, and so why would they have all this pitching talent to begin with? It's going to be hard enough to make the Major League roster if everything goes perfect with all the talent they have there. Why would they need a guy with only one eye? And did you have those kind of feelings, and how did the Dodgers handle this?
Yeah, it kind of leaks into the question before about having those self-centered thoughts and the negative self-thoughts when something like this happens. But they were very rapidly positive. They called me, I think it was the next day, and told me that they wanted me to continue pitching whether or not I gained vision back. And there are people in the organization that have dealt with guys that have only had vision in one eye before. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were very
cool.
They kind of knew what they were doing to some extent. I mean, it's obviously extremely rare, so you don't really know what you're doing, but they did help a lot, and they were very positive and reassuring throughout the entire process. So, definitely they helped a lot.
Do you remember the first pitch that you threw off of I'm sure it was a bullpen mound indoors, but do you remember the first pitch you threw? What was that like?
I mean, it came out so good.
Yeah.
It felt so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the very first bullpen felt amazing, but then it was kind of like a case of beginner's luck. Yeah. Like the first one felt amazing, and then the next few after that were just felt like nothing was going right.
Yeah.
So I lost my mind for about a week and a half, and then I got everything dialed back in pretty quickly. But yeah, I was their first bullpen felt absolutely amazing. I felt like I could have got on the mound at Dodger Stadium and done some pretty cool stuff on that day in December last year.
Yeah. So being your lead eye, you can probably pick up your target, your catcher, and all that. But I would imagine about halfway through, whenever you rotate over, your back eye has to take over at least part of your vision. How did you deal with that, or is that just kind of in the middle of it, your instincts take over?
I think in spring training, subconsciously, my mechanics kind of tweaked themselves in a bad way to, like compensate for that. But I, obviously I had to get through that and kind of trust the fact that, my instincts would take over. And, it really isn't that long of a time when my throw is feeling the best that, I can not see the hitter or the catcher at all. So I just had to, do some drill work and all that and, really trust that I can just throw it and, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first hitter you faced, I'm sure it was in spring training, maybe even before that. Was it more nerve-wracking that you're like, okay, well, I don't want to hit this guy because of this or that, or was it more nerve-wracking just because of what happened and, just kind of getting back on the horse, you don't want to get hit again? Which one was more nerve-wracking for you?
The first hitters I faced were some Dodger minor leaguers, and I was not worried about hitting them because I had a very good excuse. If they were getting mad at me for me hitting them with the ball, I could just say, hey man, like I got hit in the face 6 months ago. Like we're at different levels here, man.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, like I was very cautious about a comebacker for a long time. Just because, one, the little bit of like, I don't want this to happen again, but two, like being able to field it is going to be different and more difficult. And, all of these factors that I didn't really even think about. But like, am I going to react on time? Is it going to hit off my glove because I don't have the depth perception, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, just the little extra training that I would do with, some of the Dodger staff, kind of alleviated all that stuff. So by the time I went, I broke camp and went to Great Lakes. I wasn't really thinking about it that much.
Yeah. Was wearing the goggles, was that a tough transition for you too? Especially with all the sweat?
Yeah, it's not ideal for sure. But obviously it's a case of protection. So,
yeah,
I can't really complain about it too much, but it's definitely something that I wish I didn't have to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like getting sweat on them or them getting fogged up or anything. Sometimes I like don't have time to get the fogginess off of it. So I just like somehow like tilt my head to be able to see the signs at some point and just throw it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
But everybody has been, even like the umpires, like if I get sweat on them and I have to wipe them off or whatever, like they reassure me, like take all the time you need and all that stuff. So, I mean, having the guys that control the game, working with you a little bit to be able to, accommodate what you got going on is makes it a lot easier for sure. Okay.
Last question on this issue. We'll move on to your wonderful season last year. And that would be, do you feel like you're over it mentally? I mean, is there still kind of whiplash whenever, if you've ever been hit with a baseball, you never fully get over it. Now, you can learn to suppress it a little bit and put it in the back of your mind more, but you never fully get over it. But do you feel like you're past it mentally?
Yeah, I would say so. I got hit 3 times this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I got hit once in spring training by Teoscar Hernandez. That hurt.
Oh, man, where at?
It was in the meaty part of the leg. It was in my thigh. So
yeah,
it didn't. It just that preliminary sting and a big old bruise. But
did you get him out?
No.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but I got very rattled that time.
Yeah.
And then I got hit in the ankle in Great Lakes one time, and I was throwing. It was towards the end of my outing, and I was throwing really well, so it didn't really phase me that much. I just wanted to get out of that inning because that was my last inning anyway. And then I got hit when we were in Springfield with the Drillers, and that one didn't it hit me in the ankle again, and nothing really. I wasn't really worried about anything, thinking about anything at all. Good.
Absolutely awesome. And Sean Coyne, I had a chance to talk to him last week. He was so proud of you, and he was so happy to be able to give you the ball on day one. And as he put it, there was absolutely not anybody else that was going to get the ball for that first game. So talk about that when you took the mound and what it meant for Sean to give you the ball for the first day, opening day.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't been – it was like 2 weeks after I got hit, I went back onto the mound just to see what it was like to have a different, visual field. But the mound was covered with a tarp, so technically I wasn't on the mound, I was on the tarp. But the first time I had been on that mound was the day before opening day. We were doing like PFPs or something, and like my adrenaline just immediately spiked, and I was like, man, like what is going on here? And I was like, I hope this doesn't happen tomorrow. Like, I don't want to freak myself out. But the next day we do the national anthem, and I get on, and I'm like, you know what, man, dude, like, let's go. Like, I'm a good type of fired up now. So I was like, I was nervous the day before, but as soon as it happened, I was like, as soon as the game started, I was ready to go. I wasn't really, thinking about anything other than getting the dude out in the box.
Yeah. Okay, so before we get into your season, I kind of wanted to ask you a periphery question here. Here you have this long, lanky dude out of Ohio who went to Marshall, who, hey, had great stuff. Your stats in Marshall obviously didn't pop off of the sheet, right? And so you go from that, and from a very high ceiling potential type of guy, to all of a sudden, like the year later, you're getting all this publicity as being a very hot prospect, a name that you need to know, all that kind of stuff. So did you ever have time to think about that? Has that affected you? Has that been fun, or how do you deal with that?
I think it's been fun to, you see your random people like talking about you, and like your name gets out there, and it's like, man, like people actually know who I am. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like all of the publicity that, even like more highly touted prospects than me get, it's just kind of noise to most of us.
Right.
No one really thinks about it. I mean, we may make jokes to each other every now and then, but it's strictly what can I do today to get myself better throughout the entire season and off season for that matter. But yeah, I mean, it is fun, and we get our fair share of jokes in the clubhouse and whatnot, but it's really just keep your head down and focus on what you got to do.
Okay, 3 2/3 innings, a good outing, your first time out in that first game. Tell us what you felt like walking off the mound after your first start, after those 3 2/3 innings for Great Lakes.
Yeah, it was pretty emotional for me. It was like, a completely full circle moment, coming through, the entire off season of rehabbing and, being unsure about if I would be able to, pitch at the same level that I had been pitching, and to, perform very well and on the same mound that it happened. And, Midland being small, a lot of people that were probably at the game I got hit were at the opening day game. So, to have that, sense of community around me, and, my family was there, my fiance was there, her family was there, just to have that large community and, group to, support me. It was, very emotional for me, and it was extremely awesome.
How far is Midland from where you grew up?
Like 5 hours.
Oh yeah. So I'm sure you had everybody that could be there that day, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That had to have been really cool. Okay. So you make the bump to AA Tulsa in June. Were you surprised that you got promoted so soon?
I was surprised. I thought that, it was going to take a little bit longer of, stacking together very good outings to get called up, because, everybody says that that's one of the bigger jumps is high to AA.
Yes.
So I figured it would take a little bit longer, but, I'm not complaining whatsoever. I was, extremely excited and, ready to get to some warm weather. Wasn't expecting it to be as warm as it was, but, still cool with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of interesting because you pitched really well, and your ERA was good, but the team was really struggling. The defense behind you wasn't all that great. So how did you handle that period where it was kind of weird, to where you're excited to be in AA, you're actually pitching well, the team isn't winning though, and you're giving up runs because there's not good defense behind you. So how did you kind of put all that into the pot and make stew out of it?
I mean, it's, you may get frustrated about it because, the heat of competition, it happens to everybody, but just looking back at it, you kind of focus on controlling what you can control, because, if you focus on other things, then it is just going to drive you insane, especially in minor league baseball. So, focusing on the controllables, and I think that's what the entire team did was, focus on the things that we can control and, fall to our level of preparation to, take us from, a not so good team to one of the better teams in the Texas League for sure.
Yeah, Eric Wedge, your manager, was the 2006 actually I think he was the Major League Manager of the Year, at least American League Manager of the Year there with the Cleveland, now the Guardians, but the Indians back then. What was it like to get to work? I got to see you guys' daily process. It was incredible. What was it like to get to work underneath him, a guy that is just so professional?
Yeah, that's exactly how I describe him. He's very professional. He will forget more about baseball than I'll ever know, probably. He's extremely knowledgeable about the game and about, the inner workings of it and the small things that go from, losing by a run to winning by 2. And, just to see those little things that you don't even really think about that often is, kind of opens your eyes and makes you think a little bit more about the game, which I enjoy a lot.
Do you get to call your own pitches some? Do you have a card in your back pocket?
Yeah. We have like scouting cards, and it's me and the catcher, working together. And then, we talk with the pitching coach in between innings, but, when we're on the mound behind the plate, it's me and the catcher working together on, what we think is the best pitch for whatever situation.
How much fun was it whenever Earhart and Tibbs III came over, Cole Myers came up, and he was hot when he came up. Then you got the influx of like Luke Fox and Wyatt Crowell, Carson Hobbs, guys like that, and you instantly went from a team that was really struggling to the best team in the Texas League, maybe other than Springfield, like overnight. What was it like getting to play for a team down the stretch where you were actually playing for something in that turnaround? Was that fun?
Oh, it was extremely fun, as far as, playing good baseball day in and day out, fun to watch, fun to be a part of, and, fun to meet new guys and, just see what they're about. Tibbs and Earhart are both great guys. I really enjoyed playing with them, and to, see them, succeed in an environment that they're not comfortable with and, really help the team is, it was all encompassing. It was extremely fun.
Okay, let's dive into your stuff. You never know what adjustments a guy will make, maybe even from one start to the next, but certainly from one year to the next. So whenever you first got into professional baseball, you took your bullet slider and turned that into 2 different pitches with more of a cutter and then also a sweeper. Would that still be accurate? Can you talk about those 2 pitches?
Yeah. Right now my mix is, 4-seam, 2-seam, cutter, sweeper, and curveball. And I'm working on,
Wow.
like a change-up-ish, change-up splitter or something. I don't really have it yet, but I'm working on it. And obviously it's a lot of pitches. I've never had that many pitches for sure,
Yeah.
but I just kind of think that, I have all of these tools as far as pitch arsenal, and, if I go into spring training next year and they're telling me, hey, like, we want you to cut you down to 4 pitches, I feel confident in every one, and, the ability that it has to get hitters out to where, I'm completely okay with cutting, 1 to 2 of them and, still be effective on the mound.
Yeah. You are so competitive. It pisses you off to no end whenever things don't go the way that you expect them to do, because you have very high standards and expectations for yourself. So I say that to ask this question. How do you yourself, Patrick Copen, how do you balance I just mentioned it. I'm a guy that could have 6 different pitches. I have one of the biggest big gulps in terms of potential of any pitcher out there, but yet I still have to have results. And if I try to do too much, my execution might suffer for that. So how do you balance that mix?
It's a lot of, just going into each start or even bullpens with, the right mindset.
Yeah.
Knowing that, in a bullpen sense, okay, I'm going into this bullpen working on, this and this. And, if something else is, going wrong, we're not worrying about that right now. We're worrying about this and this. And as far as going into games, you're like, okay, we're facing this guy. The only thing that we're worried about is getting this guy at the plate out. And that's it. When other things start to come in, that's when, things start to get a little erratic and, you start to rush yourself and, all of these, not so good things start to come to fruition.
Yeah. So your 4-seam and 2-seam, how do you differentiate them as far as, okay, why do I actually have these 2 pitches and when should I throw one versus the next and the reasons for that?
Yeah, they move significantly different. I obviously with my pitch arsenal, the two seam is the only thing that goes to my arm side. So getting something into righties is, extremely effective because they're not expecting something working into them. They're expecting everything to be moving a little bit away from them or a lot of it away from them. So to be able to, just flash that and, kind of get them to back off just a little bit makes every other pitch a little bit more effective.
Yeah. So that would be kind of an east, and then do you use your cutter or whatever you want to call it that moves left? Do you pitch both east and west and north and south to different hitters?
Yeah, I try to, depending on, what the scouting report says. If a guy is, deficient in the east-west, then I'll be heavily like two seam and sweeper. But if somebody is deficient in north-south, I'll use like a four seam, or if it's a lefty, maybe I'll use a cutter and curveball. Yeah.
That's where that changeup would help too. Yeah. So do you have any just, generic go-to sequences or tunnels sequences like that? Or is it more just, hey, here's the scouting report, I have to trust it, because it's like, I can try to hit my 5-iron, but as soon as I get out on the course and I'm having to hit it over the water, I'm not quite sure I'm actually gonna do it right. Do you have any generic sequencing?
Yeah, it's very generic. I kind of use them for, spring training when we're not really getting scouting reports, or,
yes.
Some guy just got called up and we don't really have a lot of info on him or anything like that. Some of them are like, a lot of them start with fastball just because, I trust my four seam, and if you get on a first pitch four seam for me, good on you. I'll tip my cap to you. But for, let's say it's just, generic righty, I'll probably go, four seam, two seam slider, and just to like,
eyeballs up here, get them off the plate, go, oh, wow.
I mean, obviously it doesn't always work, but when it does work, it kind of leaves guys like, what the heck even just happened?
There's no doubt.
But yeah, like that's one that I just kind of like to throw in there. If somebody like I haven't seen before, haven't faced before, don't really know what's going to happen, I'll go with that, and just, at that point, whatever happens once the ball leaves my hands.
Have you hit the zero yet in a game?
No.
Oh, how close have you gotten?
0.6 miles an hour.
Oh, away?
Yeah.
So not 99.4?
99.4 is the fastest.
Oh man, where was that this year?
Yeah, I think it was one of the games against Dayton, maybe.
Okay, yeah, nice. Okay, so it was early on in the season.
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah. So the stuff is huge, man. You got the long extension, you got all the different pitches, as many as 6, especially if you master your changeup. So it's not about the big gulp and what there is in terms of the arsenal. It's going to come down to how fast you make the major leagues execution, right? So the execution piece, where do you feel like you're at with that?
I think, it's getting better. It's kind of like a slow process, especially, when, the spike of adrenaline of a game comes. You can't really replicate that, in the off season at all. But, as far as, my misses are a lot closer to the zone for sure, which I think is very telling. Nice. Yeah, that's the main focus this year for me, is as far as, pitching itself goes, is the execution piece.
Yeah. So is it as simple as, your stuff's overpowering to where, okay, where my good pitches are not going to hit, but I have to make my misses more competitive? Would that be a big maybe outlook or hone in for you?
Yeah, I believe so. There's a lot of, like 0-2 pitches, like where I try to go like heater above the zone or slider below the zone, where I'm like, I get the call, come set, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this really, really gross, or I'm going to throw it really hard. Yeah. And it's just completely uncompetitive when all I needed to do was make a pitch.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And, kind of dialing myself back in those moments is definitely going to benefit, as well as just, getting more reps in as far as like, okay, I'm throwing this pitch to this spot, and maybe challenge myself a little bit and say I'm not doing anything else until I throw this pitch to this spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Challenging yourself to hit a goal before you move on. That's absolutely awesome. Okay, so last question of business. I got one, maybe two fun questions after that. So tell us what you think right now. You're doing well enough to be a consistent major leaguer. What things you need to work on the most?
I think my stuff is pretty good compared to a major leaguer. I think that taking that stuff and executing it to the right spots and the right counts is something that needs to be worked on. Yeah, I think once that comes into play, it's going to be the difference is going to be going into a game and knowing what sequences to go with. But when you get there, I mean, Will Smith is one of the best catchers in the game, and Dalton Rushing ain't too bad at all either. So
yeah.
Going up there and having those guys up there is obviously going to help a lot, just being very experienced and all that. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing my stuff is good enough, but execution piece needs to be worked on 100%.
Yeah, you were a big-time basketball player back in your high school days. Hit a big three-pointer in the playoffs. Also, were known for some thunderous dunks. So I got to ask you, which one are you better at right now, shooting threes or dunking? And we won't tell anybody in the Dodgers that you play basketball still.
I haven't shot at basketball in a long time. I mean, I would have to say that I'd probably be better at dunking just from the depth perception.
All right.
Arena, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. And okay, so let's finish this up. There's going to be a million different people to thank in a situation like yours, and just overall, just to get to where you're at, even if you didn't have the situation of hitting the eye, just to get where you're at, it takes a million different people in your village. This is your time to thank them all.
Wow, all of them. My fiance has been a huge help. Macy McElhaney is her name. She helped me through the recovery process and went above and beyond with everything that needed to be done. And, even without that, she'd be my biggest supporter, number one fan. Also my family, extremely supportive from the first day I picked up a baseball till, I hang it up for good. And, those two groups of people are, number one and number two, but, not ranked.
Yeah, right.
There's, I could thank, high school coaches, even high school travel ball coaches. My college coaches helped me a lot to kind of realize what type of pitcher I was and where I could be. And, I feel like the path that I've taken has lined up extremely well. And, I really wouldn't trade it for anything.
No doubt about it. Patrick Copen, you are an inspiration, sir. Thank you for joining.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.